I'm looking forward to taking a few bike trips again this summer. If all works out well, possibly including circling around Lake Erie, the Empire State Trail, and the Ohio to Erie Trail again. But this trip here would be my first trip of the year, and it would also be the first bike trip I've took with my father, who had recently celebrated his 80th birthday. We were headed to the Great Allegheny Passage trail to ride the 150 miles over 4 days. This first day of the journey is always the longest, as it involves a drive to Pittsburgh and then a ride in an Amtrak train from Pittsburgh to Cumberland, during which we hope to get a little sleep. This would be my father's first bike trip. Although he's a professor, a poet, and a publisher, I wondered if his most important credential on his resume would be his experience as a Boy Scout. He shared with me his experience of biking 25 miles with his brother and Scouts to get a biking merit badge. We arrived at the Amtrak train, got our bikes loaded, and sat in the cafe as the attendant made up our room. Once we arrived in Cumberland, we loaded our bikes back up with their bags and headed to Cafe Mark, a restaurant that has a good breakfast for starting the trip. This day would be 44 miles from Cumberland to Rockwood. Although I usually camp during my trips, we would be doing things a little bit different for this trip, and I was looking forward to some of the new experiences that would bring. This included stays at B&Bs. The weather forecast for the week was excellent. Upper 60s, low 70s, sunny days the entire trip. As usual, I rode my Surly Midnight Special, including a new front bag from Bags by Bird, which was just amazing in terms of its construction and its capacity, and especially the ease of getting it on and off the bike. My father rode his e-bike from Aventon with a claimed range of 60 miles. It's a pedal assist bike, which means that he needs to pedal and work, though it adds a little bit of extra strength, especially for the hills. Anyone who takes bike trips knows that in addition to the workout for your legs and heart and lungs, difficulties arise from being on the bike for several hours, such as pains to your posterior, your hands, your wrists, neck, shoulders, feet, etc. I wondered how my dad would do, but it turns out he did just fine. The Big Savage Tunnel was open for the year and cool as usual. The Eastern Continental Divide is a high point of the trip, figuratively and literally. And it was nice to get to the point where we had a slight downhill for the rest of the trip. We stopped at Myersdale, where they had outlets to add some juice to his battery. He didn't need any, he had plenty of range left to go, but just being safe. Meanwhile, I checked out the depot and the caboose. Freshened our water as well. It's a good place to stop. We headed back on the trail and crossed the Salisbury Viaduct, the longest bridge along the trail. restaurants would be closed in Rockwood, with it being a Monday. So we did our best by making some sandwiches and getting some pasta salad sourced from the local Dollar General and a gas station. We stayed at the Rockwood Trail House, a bed and breakfast right on the trail next door to a bike repair shop. It was a good place to stay, and there was pleasant company from a couple who were headed from Pittsburgh all the way to D.C. for their first bike trip ever, and a father with his 2 adult children that were headed in the opposite direction from D.C. to Pittsburgh for their first bike trip ever. The second day to Ohiopyle would be a shorter one, 28 miles. We were greeted again with amazing weather, although a bit chilly and nothing worth complaining about. We didn't see as many animals along the trail as I sometimes do, although the chipmunks were there to dart back and forth randomly, and a large amount of centipedes crossing the trail. To me, it's nice having a river alongside you more often than you do the first day of the trail. The Pinkerton Bridges, a couple highlights of the trail for me, had recently been redone and were open to the public. They had been resurfaced. The Pinkerton Tunnel lies between the low and high Pinkerton Bridges. We were happy to follow trail etiquette, saying hello to everyone that passed, and on your left when we passed others, and moving over when we were passed. This bridge remains to this day one of my favorite stops along the trail. There's a little walkway beside it to go down and stand by the water. It's just outside of Confluence. It was nice to arrive in Ohiopyle. It was still early enough in the year that it wasn't too busy, as it can sometimes become in the summer. We had planned to stop at a restaurant next to our B&B, but it was closed despite open flags outside. So we stopped at the Falls Market Inn and grabbed some good sandwiches. We then headed over to the Ohiopyle Coffee Company for a fresh cup. In Ohiopyle, we stayed at one of the Stay in Ohiopyle bed and breakfast. It was clean, comfortable, close to town, and convenient. For the third day, we would head from Ohiopyle to West Newton. It was going to be a 43-mile ride. There was another bed and breakfast waiting for us in West Newton. Wonderful weather again, starting off cool enough to need a jacket. The Ohiopyle Bridges provide an amazing view of the river and rapids. youngest son rode the gap with me once. My other two children, not expressing much of an interest in riding the trail with me yet, but maybe they will someday. It was nice to have my dad along with me for this ride. I had planned to get lunch at the Kickstand Cafe in Connellsville, which I often do, but had not yet opened for the day, so we stopped at the Connellsville Canteen, a restaurant filled with memorabilia. Good food, plenty to see, friendly service. There was a room with an elaborate model train set up with scenery, amazingly mostly handmade. Outside, there were murals with scenes of the town. It was a good meal, and I was glad I had the opportunity to stop there for the first time. But it was also nice to get back to the trail. We started to see more riders on the trail. Some for day trips, but many for journeys along the whole trail. We took the opportunity for a quick rest at the Round Bottom campground. My father and I were both doing well during the trip. We were in the groove, not getting sore, but appreciating brief rests along the trail too.
Something to guide your way, even if you're too scared to follow. There's a light in each new day. If the moon gives up rising, the sun stops it shining, you know you'll have.
At the Cedar Creek campground and park, we stopped, where my father was able to add some more charge to his bike with outlets in one of the pavilions. Again, it didn't seem his bike needed it, but always good to get it while you can. I was very happy with the setup I had for my Surly. The bags were reliable, plenty of space, easy to get on and off. In addition to the Bags by Bird bag on the front, I had an Arkell roll top bag on the rear.
One up and three below.
Into West Newton, we came to the Plummer Historic House, where we were to spend the night. An old house originally built in 1814. I believe the wood side, and I believe the brick side was added in about 1836. And it had recently been completely remodeled inside. It was right along the river with a fire pit, picnic tables and chairs, and quite a view. Several bedrooms inside, nice, clean, interesting, and comfortable.
If the moon gives up rising, the sun.
We took advantage of the showers and getting cleaned up and headed to the Bloom Brew, a microbrewery, for dinner. Turned out what they had was a food truck for some food and another truck with some of their microbrews to sample. It was a good evening right on the river.
Yeah, there's more than one way to go home.
final day to Pittsburgh would be about 37 miles. And like the rest of the trip, it started off with wonderful weather, even though a little bit cooler than the other days. We started at Gary's Chuck Wagon for a good breakfast. Nice crispy bacon and homemade toast. And then we got back onto the trail. Everybody has favorite sections of the Gap, but one thing I like is the variety of the sections. The trail from Cumberland to Rockwood is one type of trail, or on Ohiopyle the scenery certainly changes. In the West Newton area it's different, and then obviously as one gets into the Keysport in Pittsburgh, the change becomes dramatic as well. The variety breaks up the trip a little bit, gives you something different to look forward to. When we came into McKeesport, we took the opportunity to sit along the river. The breaks on these trips are not only part of my favorite portions of the trip, they're also an opportunity to sit and look around, relax, and think. For me, it's good to take a little break every hour or two just to let the body relax and recoup. It helps to avoid aches and pains or sores that might arise by too much time directly on the bike. As mentioned, the scenery definitely changes as one gets closer to Pittsburgh. We took the Hot Meadow Bridge to cross the river. Despite this being my father's first bike trip over multiple days, I think he did amazing. No complaints, no sores, no injuries. He did great. There was a detour through Pittsburgh that we followed. It wasn't entirely convenient, though I'll admit I may not have been on the correct detour the entire way. But we were headed to the point, and to the point we were going to get to. As I've always said, the fountain at the point has to be one of the best endings of a bike trail, at least that I've been on. It punctuates the entire trip. On this particular day, there were several school students there, enjoying some field trips, I think, during the last week or two of their school year. This was a great trip. It always is on the Gap, and I had good company. After taking some of the obligatory end-of-the-trip pictures, we needed to head back to our car at the Grant Street Transportation Center. On the way, we found some new murals, another addition to the journey.